What happens when an idealistic aim becomes a national nightmare? How did Pol Pot, a leader who envisioned a pure agricultural utopia, transform Cambodia into one of the most horrible killing fields in history? This film depicts the tragic story of how a perfectionist mindset resulted in widespread destruction, fear, and irreversible harm to millions of people. Could such a disaster have been prevented, or was it doomed from the start? Pol Pot was born Saloth Sar on May 25, 1925, in Prek Spauv, Cambodia. Saloth Sar grew up in a wealthy household, giving him access to possibilities that many Cambodians could only dream of. His father was a rich farmer with extensive property, and his mother was strongly committed to Buddhism. His mother's discipline helped form his strict and dictatorial leadership style. Saloth Sar started his official schooling at the age of 6 at a Buddhist monastery, where he learned about harsh discipline and Buddhist beliefs. He struggled academically and eventually switched to a Roman Catholic elementary school. Despite his struggles with formal schooling, Saloth Sar was accepted into a famous boarding school financed by the Cambodian royal. The upheaval of World War II, which brought Japanese occupation to Cambodia before the nation gained independence from the French colonial administration in 1953, had a tremendous impact on Saloth Sar's perspective. In 1949, he won a scholarship to study in Paris, where his political beliefs started to radicalize. While studying, he immersed himself in the literature of Marxist theorists, becoming more critical of colonial power and imperialism. Pol Pot's stay in Paris was a turning point in his life. During his time in France, he became associated with a variety of Marxist political organizations. He was exposed to Marxism-Leninism, which he considered a potent instrument for liberating Cambodia from colonial rule. These political ideals began to shape his vision for Cambodia as he grew more radicalized against French colonialism and Western influence. When Pol Pot returned to Cambodia in 1953, he found it in a state of political instability. King Sihanouk's administration suppressed criticism, providing fertile ground for opposition groups. Pol Pot's political involvement brought him closer to Marxist-Leninist views. In 1959, he played a significant role in the formation of the Kampuchean Labour Party, which would later become the Khmer Rouge. The 1950s and 1960s were turbulent years in Southeast Asia. The rising dominance of communism in Vietnam prompted many Cambodian rebels, notably Pol Pot, to seek similar political objectives. During this time, Pol Pot started to develop alliances with North Vietnamese communists who were waging their battles against colonial forces and Western-backed governments. These relationships would play a crucial role in the establishment of the Khmer Rouge. By 1966, the Kampuchean Labour Party had evolved into the Communist Party of Kampuchea, CPK, better known as the Khmer Rouge. Under Pol Pot's leadership, the Khmer Rouge adopted an extreme form of Marxism-Leninism, emphasizing agricultural socialism. Their objective was to establish an independent, classless society free of outside influence. They envisioned a country in which peasants would form the backbone of the economy and cities would be eradicated. Pol Pot and the Khmer Rouge capitalized on Cambodia's political instability during the Vietnam War. In 1970, King Sihanouk was deposed in a coup conducted by General Lon Nol. Pol Pot regarded this as a chance to escalate the Khmer Rouge insurgency. He won the support of rural communities by promising land reforms and appealing to peasant concerns against the governing urban elites. The Khmer Rouge movement grew gradually, with militants using guerrilla methods against the Lon Nol regime. As the civil war in Cambodia progressed, the Khmer Rouge gained control of more and more areas. By the early 1970s, the Khmer Rouge had established its dominance in Cambodia's rural areas, ushering in one of the country's worst periods. On April 17, 1975, the Khmer Rouge stormed Phnom Penh, Cambodia's capital, ushering in Pol Pot's reign of terror. Pol Pot, who now had full authority as prime minister, pursued dramatic social changes aimed at converting Cambodia into a utopian agricultural state. However, these reforms swiftly turned into a nightmare for millions of Cambodians, One of the most drastic actions employed by the Khmer Rouge was the evacuation of cities. Under the pretense of agricultural collectivization, the dictatorship transferred the entire urban population to rural regions, where they were forced to work in labor camps. The villagers were promised it was just temporary, but they were never permitted to return home. The forced relocations led to widespread mortality, sickness, and famine since urban inhabitants were unaccustomed to the hard country lifestyles. Pol Pot's dictatorship banned all sorts of private property to build a classless society. The Cambodian people lost their wealth, prestige, and even fundamental rights. The administration prohibited all types of cash and shut down banks, marketplaces, schools, and companies. Intellectuals and anybody suspected of opposing the government faced harsh persecution. The Khmer Rouge government became known for its suppression of academics. Pol Pot thought that persons with an education were intrinsically hazardous to his ideal of a simple, rural state. As part of its extreme reforms, the Khmer Rouge attempted to abolish conventional religious and cultural organizations. Buddhist monks were defrocked, temples demolished, and spiritual rituals prohibited. Pol Pot's vision of a new Cambodia did not allow for opposition, and any kind of resistance was mercilessly repressed. Cambodia became a fear-driven society during Pol Pot's leadership, as the Khmer Rouge carried out mass murders around the country. The killing fields are possibly the most disturbing reminder of the slaughter that occurred during this time. These were the locations where individuals were transported to be executed and buried in mass graves. Choeung Ek, outside Phnom Penh, is one of the most notorious killing fields. Thousands of men, women, and children were killed here, many without trial, and their remains were interred in shallow graves. The Khmer Rouge killed government leaders, professionals, academics, ethnic minorities, and even anyone who wore spectacles, which was considered a sign of intellectualism. The Khmer Rouge carried out the genocide with ruthless precision, utilizing rudimentary equipment like axes, hoes, and machetes to kill their victims. Bullets were deemed too precious to squander on executions. The slaughter was not confined to the killing fields. The Khmer Rouge created multiple torture centers around the nation, the most notorious of which was Tuol Sleng, better known as S21. Tuol Sleng, formerly a high school, was transformed into a jail where hundreds of inmates were tortured before being sent to the killing fields. Prisoners were compelled to confess to crimes they did not commit, and after signing confessions, they were executed. The circumstances at Tuol Sleng were appalling, and only a few captives survived. Life during the Khmer Rouge was marked by tremendous hardship and deprivation. The regime's aggressive measures aimed at collectivizing agriculture caused severe hunger. People were compelled to labor long hours in the fields with little food or sleep. Because the Khmer Rouge was concerned with self-sufficiency, Cambodia was sealed off from the rest of the world, and the country's agricultural output could not meet the needs of its people. In addition to malnutrition, forced labor, and mass murders, the Khmer Rouge maintained stringent standards regarding personal behavior. Families were often separated, and individuals were prevented from expressing feelings like love, sadness, or pleasure. The state handled marriage ceremonies, and couples were usually pushed into regime-arranged partnerships. The Khmer Rouge also aimed to dominate all aspects of Cambodian life. People were organized into communal farms, where they toiled under the supervision of party leaders. The administration outlawed traditional cultural traditions, and anybody found breaking the regulations faced heavy punishment. The Khmer Rouge went so far as to attempt to obliterate Cambodia's past by destroying libraries, museums, and historical artifacts. The horror of Pol Pot's tyranny ended in January 1979 when Vietnamese troops invaded Cambodia and deposed the Khmer Rouge regime. A series of border conflicts between Cambodia and Vietnam precipitated the Vietnamese involvement. Still, it also helped to put an end to the horrors perpetrated by Pol Pot's dictatorship. The Khmer Rouge escaped to the forests, where they fought a guerrilla war against the Vietnamese-backed government for many years. Pol Pot remained in secret, running the Khmer Rouge until he died in 1998. Despite his defeat, the wounds created by his rule continue to plague Cambodia today. The defeat of the Khmer Rouge did not immediately result in peace in Cambodia. For years, the nation was in anarchy as several groups fought for control. Cambodia did not stabilize until the early 1990s when a United Nations peacekeeping operation was sent there. In the years after the Khmer Rouge's reign of terror, the world community has battled to reconcile with the horrors committed. Efforts to bring the Khmer Rouge's remaining leaders to justice have been delayed and sometimes met with resistance. The Khmer Rouge Tribunal, formed in 2003, has tried some high-ranking leaders, but many Cambodians believe justice has been sluggish to arrive. One of the important persons brought to justice was Kaing Gek Eave, also known as Duch, the head of the Tuol Sleng jail. Duch received a life sentence in 2012 for his involvement in the crimes at Tuol Sleng. However, many other Khmer Rouge officials, including Pol Pot, evaded punishment, either dying before being tried or fleeing prosecution. The story of Pol Pot and the Khmer Rouge is a sobering reminder of how a drive for power can lead to horrific devastation. However, it also emphasizes the human spirit's resilience and the need to remember history in order to prevent it from happening again. Thank you for joining us as we look into this awful chapter in Cambodian history. If you loved this documentary and want to see more of it, please subscribe to our channel, like this video, and click the notification bell to stay up to date on our future releases.